Welcome to Hard Talk. I'm Stephen Sackur. Kosovo has enjoyed independent statehood for 13 years, but almost half the world doesn't recognize it. Poverty and corruption are endemic, and its own Prime Minister seemingly has doubts about the desirability of independence. Now, that Prime Minister is my guest today. Albin Kurti has had a turbulent career. He's been a political prisoner. He launched 5 tear gas attacks on his own parliament. And he has a vision of Kosovo unifying with Albania. So is he a source of instability in the Balkans? Prime Minister Albin Kurti in Pristina, welcome to Hard Talk.
Thank you for having me.
Prime Minister, your predecessors as leaders of Kosovo have all put a big priority in trying to normalize relations with Serbia, trying to make peace with Serbia. You say it is not even a priority for you. Why?
We won on 14th of February elections with a landslide victory. With a ticket of jobs and justice. I don't want to neglect normalization of relations with Serbia, but economic development on one hand and rule of law against corruption on the other are our 2 top priorities. Taking into consideration that we are now amidst pandemic COVID-19, of course, this means the dialogue with Serbia has fallen at best at number 4 in our democratic state-building agenda for our independent republic.
Isn't the truth, if you talk about democratic state-building, that nothing can really happen? There can be no real progress toward a more prosperous, more stable Kosovo unless you have a normal relationship with your neighbor Serbia. So in the end, surely, it's that which must come first.
That is an important part of good neighborly relations, but I must say that Kosovo in this year has seen an unprecedented economic growth, and our central bank foresees a growth of 9.9% of GDP. And we took office when last year we saw a contraction of 3.1% of our GDP. Exports increased by 2/3 in this year. Tax revenues by 1/3 without changing fiscal policy, and we managed to carry out 437 police operations, 746 raids, searches, and we destroyed 31 criminal gangs. So Kosovo is a success story, and we are doing very well, better than ever in the after-war period. We want good relations with Serbia. We want a dialogue where we are going to discuss about the status of future relations, because status of Kosovo is something that has been sealed with ICJ opinion on 22nd of July 2010, which says that Kosovo's declaration of independence did not violate international law. So good relations with Serbia will help, but they are not top priority.
Let me just stop you for a second, Prime Minister. You say you do want better relations with Serbia, but isn't the truth that the Serbian president, Mr. Vučić, when he last spoke to you, he said, you know what, I thought that relations with Kosovo couldn't get any worse, but I now realize they can always get worse. The Serbs see you as a troublemaker. They point to the fact that you just demanded, what, a month ago, that all Serbs crossing the border into Kosovo change their license plates. That was just regarded as petty and aggressive. Why are you playing these games?
I am just implementing reciprocity measures because we are an independent country. For 10 years, citizens of Kosovo have been paying €5 every time when they cross the border towards Serbia to get their temporary car plates. Now, with the expiring of this agreement on mid-September this year, we started to implement the same measure, so they take temporary car plates in Kosovo once they enter our territory. But we don't want to have these barriers. We want to remove them altogether. But they have to get used to reciprocity measures and not anymore to asymmetric situation where we have to pay for their aggressiveness. 22 years ago, 19 countries got together and NATO bombed Yugoslavia, Serbia at that time. It must have been very bad then. And of course it was very bad because there was genocide in Kosovo. At that time, President of Serbia that you've mentioned was Minister of Information of Milosevic's government. So I think that when he says such allegations, you should take them with a certain reserve.
Isn't there a simple truth here, which is that if we look at your political record, you basically seem to believe Kosovo is better off in a state of permanent hostility with Serbia. After all, it was you back in 2015 who, when the Kosovo parliament was considering an agreement over the treatment of the Serb minority in your country, an agreement you didn't like, an agreement which the Serbian government supported, you let off tear gas inside the parliamentary chamber in protest. Your record suggests you'll do pretty much anything to prevent a normal, peaceful relationship with Serbia.
I was a political activist throughout my life. Sometimes I was radical, but that was accordingly to the topic, not because of my character. In 2015 and 16, there was this attempt to do Bosnization of Kosovo. Namely to regroup Serb-majority municipalities into third layer of power under direct control of Belgrade. And of course, we did not allow that to happen. We want good relations with Serbia, and we need mutual recognition. Mutual recognition between the Republic of Kosovo and the Republic of Serbia should be the centerpiece, the organizing principle of future comprehensive agreement. Only on the basis of EU values and principles, only on mutual recognition and reciprocity in our relations, we can have long-time peace and stability.
Prime Minister, the EU has called upon you to treat the Serb minority in your country with greater respect, offer them greater equality. If one looks at a whole host of independent human rights reports, there is a consistent theme that the Serbs who live in Kosovo are excluded from the economy, are not treated fairly by the judicial system, are in effect forced to remain within their small enclaves. Are you prepared to tell me that you will give a better, fairer deal to the Serbs who live in your territory?
These are not correct allegations. Serbs in Kosovo are around 5 to 6% of the population. They are not discriminated. But these things that Serbia tried to impose on Kosovo's statehood and our constitutional construction were not the desire or the will of the Serbs of Kosovo, but an expression of the hegemonic aspirations of Serbia. So when Association of Serb-majority municipalities in Kosovo was not implemented, no Serb of Kosovo protested, ever. It was always Belgrade who was angry. And in 1991, 26th of April, 14 municipalities with Serb majority in Bosnia and Herzegovina, they got together, created their association. 9th of January 1992, they declared independence. 28th of February 1992, they got their constitution. And finally, 14th of December 1995 in Dayton, Ohio, international recognition. They want to repeat Bosnia in Kosovo. I'm not going to allow this, be that in opposition or in the government. And that's why people voted me to prevent Bosnization of Kosovo. I am confident that with our program, we are going to help Serbs as much as Albanians. If you ask Serbs in Kosovo, what are your key complaints or requirements, they will say jobs and justice. But Belgrade wants to have a state within a state of Serbia within the independent state of Kosovo.
If I may say so, there is one obvious way out of this, and it was a way out which was seen by your former president Thaci, and that was to agree small, limited territorial swaps with Serbia so that they could integrate into their country the Serbian minority. You could get some recompense with land swaps, and that surely would put an end to this hostility. Are you prepared, as was former President Thatcher, to negotiate on that basis?
Of course not. I want dialogue to be about the rights and the needs of the citizens, not about territorial exchange. But it is in the nature of autocrats to think that they can swap territories as if they are their property. But we are not in medieval times with monarchs who consider that territory of the state is the land of the father or the monarch, and the people are the family of the one who leads. We are a democratic republic, and no such solutions will be on the table. And that's why I won in these elections, because people of Kosovo do not want that. I think also Serbs don't want that. It is President of Serbia who wants that. And now, because I came to power, he does not mention anymore delimitation with Albanians and territorial solutions, but he wants to have Bosniazation of Kosovo in the form of a Serbian autonomous entity within our republic in order to render us dysfunctional and a failed state. But that is not going to happen.
The problem for you, Mr. Prime Minister, is that as long as this limbo exists for Kosovo, and after all, you've had your statehood for what, 13 years and more, and yet half of the world doesn't recognize you, including 5 member states of the European Union will not offer you recognition. The problem is that as long as this hostility with Serbia continues, your limbo status will continue. And I just wonder whether you are offering the people of your country any brighter future.
We are progressing in rule of law, fighting corruption, socioeconomic development, in spite of the problem with Serbia, and that's why President of Serbia is in panic. Because of our progress, he's in panic, and he wants some kind of quick fix now, like he was aiming with my predecessors. But let's not forget, out of 27 member states of EU, 22 recognize us. So only 5 do not, but vast majority do recognize us. Then out of 30 member states of NATO, it is 26 that do recognize us. We have recognition, massive recognition from the democratic world. Of course, within the 5 Security Council permanent members, Russian Federation and China do not recognize us, but UK, France and US do. So let's see on the positive side. Who are those who do not recognize us?
Well, hang on. You don't have to convince me, Prime Minister. You have to convince your own people. And your own people see that right now you have a big problem with the EU. You can't even get visa liberalization because the EU is very skeptical about your economy, about potential migration. And President Macron of France has made it clear that he has no intention of allowing Kosovo and indeed other countries in the Western Balkans to become full members of the European Union. So your desire for a closer relationship with Europe is stuck.
Well, EU has helped us a lot in these years with different funds on all the aspects, and we look forward to join EU one day. It is not fair towards us that we still do not have visa liberalization. Namely, in July this year, we marked 3 years since European Commission recommended for the second time that we should get visa liberalization, but we still did not get. And that is not because of EU, it's because of certain EU member states. However, the lack of trust, of confidence somehow, in Western Balkan 6 countries, not only in Kosovo, by the side of EU, has also to do with the lack of EU self-confidence. So I am critical towards EU. I want to join EU. But I don't belong to those who are bitter towards EU. I think that Europe is our continent and EU is our destiny.
Have you read the latest EU report on the progress or lack of that Kosovo is making in key areas? It is damning of where your country is in terms of the rule of law, human rights, economic freedoms. I don't know if you've read the report, but if you have, then your country is never going to develop a close relationship with the EU unless you fundamentally change.
Of course we want to change. We want to progress, and we will do that. And we need the EU help. I believe that EU values should be homegrown in Western Balkans, in particular in my country, but they cannot be self-made. We need help from outside, and I think we will get that. But the progress report of this year mentions first 6 months of previous government and 6 months of our government. So it takes a very absurd average evaluation. But again, it also marks certain progresses that we did. For example, in Western Balkans 6, Kosovo is top country regarding the extent of vaccination of the population. We have managed to administer 1.6 million doses, and we have, of all population who are over 16 years old, it's 55% with 2 doses and 64% with 1 dose. So we are doing much better than before, and EU knows this as well.
Yeah, but I'm putting myself in the position of a young Kosovan, maybe in their early 20s. They look at your unemployment rate for young people, which is nearly 50%. They look at the fact that they can have a much better life if they can make it to Croatia, or still better for some of them, make it into the EU, to Germany. You have a brain drain of young talent. Your country, as I said before, is stuck. And I'm not sure that you're offering your people any way out of the economic and the corruption crisis that you're in.
Well, I tried to explain that we have increased tax revenues by 1/3 without changing tax policy, fiscal policy. So people that you've mentioned who are unemployed, youth, they voted for us. That's why I'm in power, because they are dissatisfied. But this does not mean that they are depressed. They are just dissatisfied, and they got the government they always wanted. And we are only 7 months in office now, not 7 years. It's 7 months, and we're doing well. We took Kosovo with minus 3.1% negative growth of GDP, and we're going to have a double-digit growth for the first time in after-war Kosovo, which is unprecedented in the Balkans. You have to recognize and acknowledge this. People are optimistic and hopeful, and rightly so.
Well, Prime Minister, symbols are important, and one key symbol as to whether Kosovo is prepared to play by the rules of the international community is whether you're prepared to accept the special court that has been set up in The Hague to try suspects suspected of committing war crimes in the late 1990s. That is specifically people who were members of the Kosovo Liberation Army, which of course you were associated with in the late 1990s. Now, your former President Thaci currently faces charges. You have suggested you do not accept the legitimacy of this court, whereas your own president, who we've had on HARDtalk, she clearly does accept the legitimacy of that court. So here's your chance with me right now to say that you've changed your mind and you do accept the special court in The Hague.
Many things that I have found as legacy of my predecessors I do not like, but it's a fait accompli. There is nothing I can do about it. So specialist chambers, they are not a very transparent justice system, and they have not shown that they are multi-ethnic. So they have been taking only KLA leaders who are Albanians, and as if no one else did crimes here. War crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. But I think that time will show that truth in Kosovo demands justice, and that is that Serbia is the one who should be punished. Unfortunately, until now, with the specialist chambers, we haven't seen the right pace to satisfy the victims in Kosovo. 5 years ago, big mistakes were done, but I have to live with them, unfortunately.
I'm not sure you've actually answered my question, Mr. Prime Minister. It's quite a simple one. Your president, Osmani, said to me, we didn't say we're going to accept just a part of the international legal process. We accepted all of it. We clearly do believe in international justice. I'm inviting you to make the same commitment. Will you accept legitimacy of the special court in The Hague, particularly when it comes to the trial of former President Thaci?
Well, I think I already answered, but I can repeat my answer, and that is that we respect international justice. Kosovo had UNMIC, Kosovo had United Nations Mission in Kosovo, EULEX, we had ICTY, and another special court I don't think was necessary, but it is here now. But they are not asking for my cooperation, so I give them my support, to be honest. Because it's a very non-transparent, sui generis court with one leg in Kosovo and the other leg in Hague. So it is a much more complex situation with this latest court. I believe that we need normal courts that are going to try all war and peace crimes in spite of the ethnicity of the perpetrators, and not as it has been done with a specialist court. But let's hope that this can be corrected and rectified in the near future.
Mr. Prime Minister, I need to ask you a very basic question, and it's based upon flags. Right behind you on screen, I can see the flag, the official state flag of Kosovo. But you personally, it seems, much prefer to be photographed with the Albanian flag behind you, and that is because you're quite open when you say that Albania is one nation divided across two states, and you believe Kosovo's destiny is to be integrated into Albania. How can you be the leader of your own state and yet telling your people you don't believe in the future of your state? To outsiders, that seems incredible.
Well, I believe in the Republic of Kosovo, and thanks to Republic of Kosovo, I'm Prime Minister of Kosovo, here to serve Republic of Kosovo. But when we declared independence over 13 years ago, we did not do that in contrast to Albania, but as an expression of liberation from Serbia. And liberation from Serbia made possible for us as Albanians to restore our dignity and our civic and human rights. Now, towards the Serb of Kosovo, I'm not first of all Albanian. I'm citizen of the Republic. But historically, whenever Serbia attacked Kosovo, then Albanians always united. Because Serbia was a small imperialistic power, very closely linked with Moscow, and in our region it was the most powerful one in the last century and a half. That's why Albanian identity is also very strong, not only because of language.
Prime Minister, we're almost out of time. We can't afford to go through too much history. I just need a simple answer from you. Are you still arguing that the constitution needs to be changed and that Kosovans need to have a referendum on whether to be integrated with Albania? Is that your vision for the future of Kosovo?
I consider unfair, injustice, that there is no possibility to have referendum. And that referendum would be an expression of the freedom of the people. But now, this time, here where I am, I have been elected for jobs and justice. And this is what I will be doing in the many years to come. Independence of Kosovo is not against Serbs. And independence of Kosovo, first of all, it is independence from Serbia and not from Albania.
Throughout your political career, you've been seen as something of a firebrand, a guy who is prepared to take direct action, even to let off tear gas in the parliamentary chamber. Some worry that you are a force for instability in the Balkans. What's your message to the people who fear that you could bring great damage to your country and the region?
50.28% voted for us in last elections, and 3 top candidates in our winning list now are chairing 3 main institutions of our republic. Political stability has never been higher, precisely with a political activist like me becoming Prime Minister of our independent republic.
Prime Minister Albin Kurti in Pristina, I thank you very much for being on Hard Talk.
Thank you.